Welcome to episode 101 of the RXP Podcast. We're a group of working professionals talking about the games, movies, and shows they love to enjoy in their free time. As always, I'm your host, Alex, and joining me are my co-hosts, Tiffany.
Hello, hello.
Yasser.
We're back, and I'm not last. Holy crap.
And Matt.
What's going on?
Yeah, I just like, mixing up the order. We don't always have to go in the same order every
I'm
time.
no
So
longer
chaotic.
a second-class
That's true.
citizen. That's why.
Because
Because you hosted
Yeah,
the last
you hosted-
episode back
exactly.
in
Yeah,
line.
you hosted an episode. He's officially a part of the podcast
You officially
now.
brought me back. I appreciate that, Alex.
All right. So for today's topic, as I mentioned at the top, this is episode 101, 101, as some people like to refer to it as. And we're going to be discussing, going back to the past a little bit here, right? So this is going to be a combination of both a little bit of a nostalgia trip, but also kind of a introductory class, if you will, when you go to college. Typically, when you start some sort of course work, typically it starts with the number 101. So it's talking about like biology 101, chemistry 101. Today it's going to be the theme of entertainment 101. When you are getting into things, where's a good starting point? But as a combination, it's also going to be looking back, right? It's going to be a reflection of how did we get into certain things? Are there still good starting points? Is there something that's kind of usurped those positions to say, I enjoyed this back when I was younger, but maybe there's something that's just a teeny bit better now that maybe I'll recommend over, going back like 20, 30 years. I'm not going to out our ages, but it does get into the 30s. And so with that, that basically puts us on the spot. But with that, I do want to start this off. We're coming hot off the presses of two kind of very recent, cute games, Astrobot for PlayStation and the Plucky Squire, for all platforms. And I just wanted to kick things off with, the idea that games can be great even at these short lengths, right? Like both of these games are, around 8 to 10 hours, right? Essentially, if you have a clear weekend, these are completely, doable in one weekend. And it made me remember, back in the day playing games when I was younger, in light of this year, right? 2024, there's so many big RPGs that came out this year, right? That I'm spending 40, 50, 60, 70, 120 hours on, if we're talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And just playing stuff like Astrobot and Plucky Squire has been such a breath of fresh air for me. And it reminded me, hey, I should be playing more of these short games because honestly, right, like we play games to have fun. And it made me realize, I can have fun in these short experiences, regardless of how much they cost. But the fact that these are well-designed, tight, fun games that I don't need to spend 50 plus hours on, right? Like I don't need to spend a month of my life to get through these. And so I just wanted to kick things off with that because it's definitely such a refresher to say, hey, I'm not going to be playing this for the next month. Catch me on this weekend and then I can let you know how I feel about it quickly afterwards.
I really liked being able to finish it in a weekend because I literally did just that with Astrobot. I started on Friday, played for several hours, stayed up late, played Saturday, still went out and hung out with people, but then stayed up late again, and then
Way to brag.
Well, I basically
What a
finished the
social
game
life.
on Sunday, like by dinner time, and it was a really fun time. There were certain levels that were quite frustrating. I really had to like break my thumbs to like do well and complete it. Rolling credits was really good. I was on the fence about going after that platinum, and I decided against it because the Master Golden level can die on a hill. I hate it. In fact, you know what? Who's actually dying on a hill? It was me. I was always dying. So then I was like, no, I'm done here. But I honestly loved the fact that it was just like kind of one and done on the weekend, especially because my gaming year this year has been very tumultuous. I would say. Yeah, I've been very, there's a lot of almost analysis paralysis with the idea of, do I start that game that's going to take me 50 hours or like 7 weekends to finish, or do I just not even bother and move on with my life? And so I've been doing a lot of shorter games this year, and Astrobot really hit the spot.
Speaking of nostalgia, Astrobot just like hit, just like it made me feel like I was back to like the N64 era. Like you've got 300 collectibles that are really fun to get, and it's not going to take you long to get them. And like you're always seeing like the total at the very end. Like it's like you bring an Astrobot back, and it's like, oh, you're at 200 of 300 of these things that you're getting back. So it's like you always have that finish line. So it was very like Mario-esque. Loved it. It just like every single moment that I was doing that, it like brought me back to the magic of games, of like what made me like games to begin with. And at the end of the day, it was like, oh yeah, this is like for fun. Like this is this is to like forget what you're doing, and then, you know, dress up like Sly Cooper, find the other Sly Cooper, and dance for your platinum. Like that's what this is all about. So I loved it. Loved. I wish more games were short, honestly.
Did you pop off harder when you found Sly or when you got the Sly costume?
I think the Sly costume. I literally gasped. Because then I texted both of you, right? And I was like, hey, can I send you potentially a spoiler? Both of you are like far ahead of me. So I was like, this is probably fine. But I know I would not want you to just text me a screenshot of the game when we're like all three marathoning this. But then I just like, I literally gasped. Like Jimmy was sitting on the couch with me and he was napping. And he like woke up because I was like, you can dress as him. It was fantastic. It just like brought back that magic. Like simple. It's just fanfare. It was basically like what a lot of us like about Marvel films, which is just like cameos and fanfare. And it was just that for me, 13 hours. And it was awesome. Really, really good.
I think that I like this better than Mario Odyssey.
Wow.
I liked Astrobot better than Mario Odyssey. I'm gonna say it.
I've heard people take that take. I don't know if I believe it. Like I don't know if I agree with it for myself. But
really,
I thought Mario Odyssey is honestly the best platformer I've played. I still think that the only thing that could probably dethrone it will probably be Odyssey 2. Like it's just one of those things where I do find I really enjoyed when I saw a lot of the PlayStation games that I knew. I loved levels that, you know, had a little bit more of an impact of like PlayStation just in general. Like a lot of the things that you might have seen in the trailers. But outside of that, like there was one whole level that was about something, and I'm like, is this that Loco Roco game? And it's like, you guys are like Roco Loco or whatever. I don't know. I said the opposite.
I don't know. I didn't. Yeah.
Loco Moco, you know, great dish.
Sure. Yeah. That's exactly. So it's Mario doesn't need that. Like Mario is just classic. And I still think that the controls are more interesting for Mario Odyssey. And I think that some of the challenges of Mario Odyssey was what I enjoyed. I still think Astrobot it's not a baby game. I'm not like saying that it wasn't challenging, but a majority of it was like you can 100% it in one playthrough and you don't have to ever go back to the levels. I felt like Mario Odyssey, those levels, there was depth to them that made me have to come back, and I wanted to go back to them, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
So
it's definitely, or I just want to quickly say, it's definitely an interesting spot because I think Astrobot succeeds in the nostalgia trip, right? Because in it itself is just, you know, going back through the memories, like through the PlayStation history. Whereas Mario's, you know, there is a nostalgia there, right? Because you get the Goomba enemies, you get bullet bills,
right.
You get the typical Mario cast, but it's also paving a new future, right? Like in the fact that the planets are similar to the worlds of past Mario games, it's still done in a way that's, you know, going beyond what Mario used to be. And so it's kind of this, it's for me hard to say of like, well, Astrobot does such a great job going backwards, but then Odyssey does such a great job moving forwards. So they both kind of have their strengths there.
And if it's not been clear so far, I have not played this game, but it sounds like
which do you think is better?
All of our other three co-hosts have played and finished it. So obviously everyone can look forward to that peer review coming up. I'm sure that will be coming up real soon, right, guys?
100%. I hope so. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, sorry. I thought you had more to say.
What else can I say?
He's like, I'm going to plug this and I'm out.
Yeah.
His input was to put a cap on that.
That's what I was trying to do, but oh well.
Mario has Cappy. We don't have to worry about that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, but in that vein, right, kind of going backwards, I know, we've obviously all been gaming or at least been experiencing media, right? Maybe not necessarily gaming, but experience entertainment for, 20, 30 plus years, right? Since at least the 90s. And it's, having Astrobot go back that far, right? Because, right, this year, PlayStation is celebrating its 30th year anniversary. So it launched in December of 1994. And so this December is going to be that exact 30-year anniversary. But kind of going back in time and just in general, right? Like not necessarily in games, but maybe just looking at certain things. We talked about platformers, right? Astrobot kind of having that competition with Odyssey, Odyssey coming out in 2017. But kind of looking further back, is it, and maybe not to just be a direct competition of Astrobot versus Odyssey, but when you think about platformers, right? Like 2D or 3D, just kind of like shorter kind of self-contained games. Like, is Astrobot something you would recommend to people, especially if they didn't have any PlayStation experience? Like, let's say you just wanted to show someone a game. Do you think Astrobot ranks higher than Mario Odyssey if they didn't have any prior gaming knowledge?
Are we saying like equal access to any console? This fictitious person that we're
let's say like they're your friend, you brought him over,
I have the Switch and the PS5.
Odyssey.
I've played neither of them. What would you recommend?
Exactly.
Okay.
Does that make it easier?
Yes, it does. I would recommend Astrobot.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the functionality with the DualSense, the vibrations, how you got kind of kickback and all that stuff. I like the sound that was coming from it. I don't know that it matters that you don't know you don't know PlayStation history, because I'm going to be honest with y'all. I mean, half of those little dudes were just wearing like a shirt and jeans. And I was like, I don't know who that is. Like, I didn't honestly, like, I mean, I think I recognized Ellie and Joel, but like other than that, I was like, who's this? Are they even in The Last of Us? Are they from Uncharted? Are they from Tomb Raider? I don't know. So I just thought Astrobot was just so fun.
Let me be clear. Both of these games, in my mind, are 10 out of 10 games. Like, spoiler alert for the peer review that we will do. Review. I love both of these games. I think that your enjoyment of Astrobot might be capped if you don't know all of these PlayStation franchises. Like, honestly, when Ape Escape came on the scene, I popped off. Like, I never played Ape Escape except on the PSP, and I love that game. I played that game so much as a kid. While other things like Metal Gear Solid, all I realized was, man, I really need to play that series. Like, I know none of these people except the guy that's in the box that's in Super Mario Brothers Melee. Like, like
yeah.
Box Snake.
The Box Snake, yeah, that's what he is. But I would say the really weird thing, I think either of them would be great, Yasser, if I was recommending this to you. The one thing, though, that might put Astro above Super Mario, even though Odyssey, I think, is one of my favorite games, just in general, even above Astro, but just like in general for any game, Odyssey might be in that top tier echelon for my personal gaming list. But Astrobot, it being only 10 hours, I could have beaten that game in 10 hours, like not trying that hard. Having that much of a succinct thing, if like platformers aren't in your bag and you just want to experience something just to see, try Astrobot, finish it in 10 hours. And then, hey, if you really like this, go check out that Odyssey game and play another 20, 30 hours. Like, I think it's a perfect bite-sized platformer. Like, I think it was perfectly paced and it was fun all the way through. So spend 10 hours, get a really good game out of it. And then, hey, if that makes you really, really excited to go play another platformer, Odyssey's right there.
You know what's really funny that you say that, Matt, is that Alex beat Odyssey in like 6 hours.
That's crazy.
So like
what about the other side of the moon?
Obviously, Yeah, I didn't get all the moons though. So that's the thing
yeah.
too, where I think personally I would put Odyssey over Astrobot.
Oh.
Not to keep this just a conversation that's between these two, right? Because obviously, if there's something you think that is better as a platform, we should bring it out. But I think it's because of the amount of content. Like Matt said, there's this kind of linearity that makes Astrobot such a ease to get into and to get through, most importantly, right? Like, this isn't a game that really pushes back on really intense level design or kind of hidden secrets, right? Like, there are hidden things throughout the levels, but they're a little bit more blatant. Whereas something like Odyssey, right, it kind of makes their planets more these kind of open world levels, like mini levels. And right, in some cases, the moons are pretty apparent, right? You can see it floating in the air. The idea is just, how am I going to get there? And some things that Odyssey does better is the way they hide some of the moons, right? It's things that, using the environment to kind of hint at something, to be like, oh, these enemies are kind of congregating in this area. Is it that I need to kill them all? In something like Astrobot, it's going to be that simple. But maybe in Odyssey, well, maybe they weren't, the objective wasn't to kill all the enemies, but they were congregating around this spot, and that's where you're supposed to do like a ground pound or like a spin attack or something, and that reveals it. And so I feel like Odyssey just has that little bit of extra depth that also Matt mentioned. It does have an extensive very rigorous post-game challenge that I've never gone to personally, but the Dark Side of the Moon being there for like the hardcore Mario fans that are like, I've gone all 700 moons, and now I want to do this final challenge. I think that option of that being there, kind of like the final Grandmaster challenge in Astrobot, is such a great thing to at least have, right? And I think that post-game is probably a little bit more rewarding than quote-unquote Astrobots. And so I would put that there. But on top of that, honestly, I would probably suggest just one of the 2D Marios. Mario Wonder came out last year, and I also beat that in 6 hours. I did not get all of the seeds, the Wonder Seeds, or beat the entire post-game world. But I feel like that's also such a, Mario games in general tend to be that if you have no connection to anything, but you kind of want to get a grasp of like, oh, this is how you move in a video game, right? You use the left stick to move your character, you use the right stick, occasionally to move the camera, and then you have like a jump button and then maybe one action button. I think Mario introduces people to those types of mechanics in such a more natural way that while I feel like Astrobot does it all so much better in terms of, right, the controller is just a better controller, right? We can just get that out of the way. The DualSense is way better than the Joy-Cons will ever be. But I think from the game perspective itself, that Nintendo just has a grasp on, we're focused on fun, and we can get you to get you having fun faster and in a more simplistic way than something like Astrobot can do. But Astrobot might have higher highs, right? Like especially with those nostalgia moments. So definitely, I feel like Nintendo kind of has the grasp on, you probably want to introduce someone to a Nintendo game, but that's just my opinion, where I would definitely not, show someone The Last of Us, right? Even though that's something where I'm like, if you want to know what games can be, in case you didn't have any idea of what games could be, something like The Last of Us, I feel like is up there of saying we can make an interactive medium that gives you a very emotional connection to something. Whereas if you play something like Mario, it's like, yeah, he's a quote unquote Italian ethnically ambiguous character who goes off to save a princess. It's not the most in-depth story, but at least it's something.
So which one are you playing, Yasser?
Honestly, anyone who knows me, I think you'll know pretty quickly I don't really play platformer games. So I've been trying to get Mario Odyssey out of the way, and so it's next after Zelda, and so I do plan on playing that on the Switch, and I'm pretty much done with Zelda, so that should be pretty soon.
Okay.
I played a little bit of Astrobot at PAX West, like I showed y'all, and I played like a level and a half, and to me, I don't know, like I'm sure it's like a great game, like as far as like all the cameos and the cool level designs that I probably didn't get to see, but a lot of the times when I play Astrobot or like Astro's Playroom, it feels like an extended demo of the DualSense features and the other stuff that makes PlayStation cool, which I don't have any nostalgic connection to, like y'all were mentioning. So it's a harder sell for me in comparison to like a Mario game that I know is gonna deliver regardless of whether or not I have nostalgia. And then for me, I'm gonna be more nostalgic to IPs like Spyro. As far as like playing the mainline games, and of course I would imagine Spyro was in Astrobot, so that would be pretty cool to see. But otherwise, I feel like I'd be more
No
attached to
spoilers.
those types of games over what Astrobot's offering personally.
Oh no, I mean definitely I didn't touch Spyro, when I was younger, right? I was kind of like too young at the time Spyro came out.
Yeah.
But I picked it up when they did the Reignited trilogy.
Yeah.
And I blasted through all 3 of those games and had a great time, got the platinum in all 3.
Yeah.
And like Spyro is up there in terms of like if you want a actually just genuinely fun collectathon that doesn't really take much brain power to get through, but it's kind of fun to just run around and breathe fire on enemies, like definitely I would say Spyro is a solid recommendation.
Yeah, and so the problem for me is like I don't know, maybe I think the platformers are too easy sometimes, because I really got into Reignited Trilogy and I played through the first game and then I lost steam during the second game, because like you said, it's just like you turn your brain off and you just do levels and then maybe you find the collectibles in all of them each level, but even that is pretty straightforward and easy. So that's what I worry about with a lot of platformers that I've played, is that they typically run into that kind of realm where they don't try to make it too difficult because they know their core audience is on the younger side, if you know what I mean.
Or people maybe not familiar with it, right? I feel like there always should be kind of that genre that's like, this is what you recommend to people.
I totally agree with that too. That's definitely a fair point.
It's like I'm not going to, if we're talking about like board games or something, recommend like Risk. Be like, yeah, let's get someone to board games with a nice session of Risk,
Oh God,
I love Risk.
But how
Right, but
often do you
we
play
offended.
Risk? Yasser, be honest.
Okay, I haven't played it in a long time, but I remember playing it with my friends when I was in high school, like probably too much. We loved
I
Risk.
played it once in my adult life, and I was like, wow, that's a game. All right.
Yeah.
How many
it's
times when
definitely
you
a
tell
game.
people that you're into board games, they're like, I love Monopoly.
Matt, don't even talk to me about that, because I literally stare at them. I'm like, there's like a board game renaissance right now, right? Like,
So they're like
there's-
more versions of Monopoly now? Oh wow, tell me
Wow.
more.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm like, get
The
away
Disney
from me.
Monopoly.
Hey,
Like,
Monopoly Go just won like mobile game of the year in like Asia or somewhere.
Wow.
That's crazy.
what the heck?
It's coming back.
I've never played that.
It's
I've never
coming
played that
back.
version.
Do you play board games via like video games ever, like on your phone or on consoles?
So I do own a couple like digital versions of board games, especially during the pandemic where that, kind of shut things down.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really played Tabletop Simulator, which is on Steam, but I have the mobile version of Pandemic because
Oh.
I have that on my tablet. And what's kind of nice about the digital versions is that you can play by yourself against a bunch of computers. And then also you could do local mode. Like I remember one time I was waiting in line for like a Disney ride or something, and I was going with
pull
friends.
out the mobile
and
app.
Yeah, you pull out the
Dang,
mobile app.
pulling
and
out
we were, like,
Pandemic. What a flex.
we were like passing around the phone during our turns and everything. So, I mean, mobile Pandemic is pretty fun, Matt. One time, I think it was like when I was very early, like when in the board game scene, where I was like, wow, this game is pretty fun. I'm gonna get the digital version, and when I was traveling, being on the plane, and that would be the one that I played for like one round or something. But
Plus
Yeah,
Disney
I've-
lines are hella boring, so
that is true. It's pretty, and they can be pretty long, especially with all the new rides coming out. and
yeah,
everything.
for real.
Yeah, but no more Monopoly. If someone's coming at me and they're like, "Oh, I love board games like Taboo and categories," I'm like, "Yo, no. There's like better games out there." Like I think Pandemic is a great intro board game. This game is now like 15 years old or something, but they've come out with like 18 different versions. There's a Star Wars version called like Clone Wars. There's a old-timey version where there's no planes, there's only trains. There's a Cthulhu version where you're like trying to beat the madness, all this stuff. But OG Pandemic is a great intro game for people who've never played a cooperative type board game before. Most
awesome.
people grow up, playing competitive board games, and cooperating to win a goal is, I feel like, few and far between. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
It's like,
Is Pandemic the board game to get people into board games, though? Is that your go-to? Is that your most convincing presentation? Is that play this and this will teach you like board games are great?
Honestly, I actually think that Ticket to Ride might be the board game that gets people a taste of this is what modern board gaming can do. Because number one, I think Ticket to Ride can at least play 5. Pandemic only plays 4. However, it is a team cooperative game, so honestly, you could play with more than 4 people. But you only have like 4, pieces on the board to do the thing, right? But Ticket to Ride can at least play 5. There's the mechanic of set completion. You're collecting cards. You're trying to draw cards to get the number of trains on the board. You're trying to get from A to B. You have secret objectives that you're working towards. There's some I can't remember if there's known objectives. I can't remember if that is an element to it, but the fact that you're working towards a goal, and so you're also trying to keep track of what other people are doing. You can block people from going somewhere if it's more advantageous for you, or to just be mean, whatever. It doesn't have to be that way. You kind of everyone can just come up with their own strategy. I feel like Ticket to Ride has multiple map variations beyond just the OG. So if people are really into it, hey, let's put train tracks in Asia or in Africa, whatever. I think there's just a lot of options there.
I think,
and I've bored everyone in this room.
No, because I want to bring this back to Pandemic, because
okay,
you either gifted me Pandemic. Did you give me Pandemic?
Yeah, I did.
Like, that was the entry drug that you gave me and Maddie to play, like, at first. And now we're like definitely on our own little renaissance of board games in this house. Like, we enjoy cooperative way more than like head-to-head stuff. It's just more fun that way when it's just the two of us, especially. So like we are like on the hunt for more cooperative games, and our like latest obsession is another recommendation from you, which is Marvel Unite, which is so much fun. It is like such a fun thing, and that one has because we're like used to like
expansions,
thinking as a team and going through these things, like now we're starting with like deck building and like drawing cards and playing cards and action items and doing all these things and like making more complex moves. It's been really, really fun. But I feel like if Pandemic wasn't the first game that you gave us, then I don't know if it would have gotten like us there, you know what I mean? So I think Pandemic for us was like the perfect thing, because we were looking for a cooperative experience. I think some people like enjoy competition. I just don't like losing. So like, I love competition, but I don't know if I could deal with losing all the time, especially when there's just two of us. So it's like, I think cooperative is like the way to go.
Me every time.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just protecting my heart there with going with Pandemic. So I would argue from first-hand experience, if you want to get a friend into board games that historically considered Monopoly and taboo as a board game, Pandemic is the one for you. It's really good.
Listen, I also think the proof is in the pudding with that one. But I mean, both Ticket to Ride and Pandemic are excellent.
Yeah.
Intro to the hobby.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember the first time, guys, I tasted victory with Pandemic. First of all, when I played Pandemic for the first time, I messed up the game, and I didn't realize it, because I noticed that there were like epidemic cards. I was like, oh, why weren't those in the pile? And I shuffled them in. So then we played on the hardest difficulty and lost immediately. And they were like, my friends who were teaching me how to play were like, this doesn't feel right. What happened? What just happened? And then they're like, why are they? And they like looked through the deck, and they were like, why were there 6 epidemic cards in here? And I'm like, oh, I put them in there because I thought you were missing something. I'm like, no, it was intentional. For like you on the regular mode of the game, or like the intro mode when you're teaching new people how to play, you only put in 4 or whatever. And so I was like, oops. And then we played it again, taking out the extra cards, and we might have still lost. I don't remember, but even losing was fun because I was like, "Oh man, let's do it again."
Because you're so close,
now.
right? Like,
yes,
and that's like the
yes.
thing that's addicting with Marvel Unite. We've literally, like, okay, we've got one more roll for both of us. We have one more roll to beat Red Skull, or he will just wipe us. Like, we only have a couple cards left, and once you run out of cards, you're dead, right?
Yeah.
And in getting it and nailing our last turn to win,
man.
it's just like, that gives you life.
feeling.
It's like getting a
Yes,
par
dopamine.
on like hole 18. It's like, okay, well, I forget like the 30 balls I lost in the water today. That last par, that's going to bring me back. That's bringing me back.
Yes.
Outside of pandemic, does anybody else have recommendations on like what you think the entry should be for board games? Because I'll take notes. I'm ready.
What do you have, Alex? I got nothing.
Scrabble.
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 Heard of
great
it?
One. Fantastic.
No, yeah. I mean, it's Scrabble adjacent, so I really like Quirkle.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, it's very similar to Scrabble in that it's a like block or tile like placing game, but there's like restrictions on adjacency, so you can't place certain tiles next to each other. So it's kind of like how in Scrabble, right? You can't like put a letter in a spot that would like cause, or connect like multiple things without forming a proper letter in between them. So it's very similar in that, but it's based on shapes and colors. So it's a very kind of like visual game. You're not spelling things out. You're just kind of placing things in a row and making sure things don't, I guess, conflict with the rule set. But there are some interesting mechanics in terms of, the quintessential, as they like to call it, Quirkle blocking, which is the namesake of the game is if you place all 6 either of the same shape or color of either the same shape or a color of different shapes, so one color but they're all different shapes, in a row, it's called a Quirkle, so you basically earn bonus points, but people can place their tiles in certain ways that would otherwise invalidate that Quirkle scoring from happening, so they like to call that Quirkle blocking because you're manipulating the board state to prevent some other player in the game from gaining bonus points. And I like it because in that I enjoy Scrabble, but there is always that contention in Scrabble, right? Of like, is that a word? Are you a tryhard that's going to have like the Scrabble dictionary on hand to be like, I'm going to look it up in this book, and if it's not in here, you can't play it.
Wow. I love that rule.
So in order to,
I didn't even know there was
in order
such
to
a thing.
avoid that,
Is it just a regular dictionary?
No, it's like a dedicated Scrabble
Yeah.
dictionary.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's a money scheme. They're like, we're not giving money to Webster's. Here's the Scrabble licensed dictionary.
Yeah. And so it's adjacent enough to that where it's the same concept, right? It's like placement on a board. You don't really have a board. It's just kind of like wherever you want to place things. But it's like spatial recognition. It's also kind of like playing to your opponents a little bit, right? Because it's playing off of what they're doing. And it being a competitive board game in that aspect, I still feel like it blends that nice level of, you're not necessarily working with other people, but you're working off of what your opponents are doing. And I really enjoy that, and especially competitive board games where it's like, well, there's only going to be one winner. I'm sorry, Matt. There's only one winner in Quirkle, but your victory is going to be off the backs of your opponents. And so that's something I really enjoy, right? Is that you're utilizing them to your game.
I mean,
I feel like Quirkle is pretty accessible as well. Like, it's not that complicated. It plays 4 people. Like, it's a good time.
I think I also agree with you, Alex, that I'm more of like, if I want to play a board game, I want it to be some sort of competition. I'm no like board game connoisseur though, so I can't really suggest what someone should be playing as their first board game. That sounds like a very loaded question to me. Like, for example, I've never even played Pandemic. I've never even played Marvel Unite. Those sound like great board games. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to play them. But for me, I've played a lot of different board games over the decades. And I just feel like I've enjoyed all of them because for me, like, board games are more about like who you're playing with rather than like what you're doing and what you're playing. And to me, like, if it's not getting the competition out of you where you're ready to punch your best friend in the face, like, what are you even doing? Like, why are you even playing the board game,
God.
So
Oh my God. You're like,
Yasser
Let's
will
play
Quirkle
Monopoly.
block you.
yeah. Sounds like a Mario Party guy.
I love
That's what
Mario
he
Party
sounds
too.
like.
I remember
Mario
playing
Party's
that all the
great,
time
yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah, I love Mario Party. Actually, Yasser, I want to ask you to compare. So after our 100th episode, we played a rousing round of Summer Camp, which is a deck building board game that I really enjoy. And Yasser, I know that we've played Harry Potter, the Hogwarts
Oh, and I
Battle.
won that
That's
game,
also
by
deck
the way.
building.
Just throwing that out there. Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, whatever. You did win.
For the record.
No one gave me a friendship bracelet. None of these fools gave me a friendship bracelet.
I would have.
Let the
game
record show.
lasted longer. I was going to give.
Oh,
you
I'm
a
sorry
friendship
that the
bracelet.
like 12 rounds wasn't enough to find friendship in your heart for me. That's okay.
Oh God.
I'll remember.
Yasser.
Don't worry. When I got it, it was at the end, and I never.
Yeah, it was
even
like literally the
tried.
last
So I
round.
never had it.
Yes, never. Oh God.
At least you got a pity
But,
We're in
one.
the same
You know?
boat, Matt.
Listen, Tiffany and I were upset that we never won a single round of that Marvel stupid game that we were playing. So
That's
the
true.
payback's a bitch. What can I say?
Yeah,
Oh,
code
codenames,
names. We were playing Marvel code names. Yasser, so between the summer camp deck building and the Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle deck building, which is a cooperative
Yeah.
deck building game,
Yeah.
which one do you enjoy? Would you say you enjoy more?
So that's actually interesting that you bring up that question, because I was actually also going to say that I think if you're getting into board games for the first time, it's so easy to pick an IP that you already love and find a board game for it. And so I
That's
actually
true.
loved the Hogwarts game because I love Harry Potter. And so it was cool to like do things to fuck over like Malfoy or some
Eaters.
shit, you know?
Yeah.
So it was fun to like incorporate an IP that I already enjoyed into a board game. And I think that's a great way to get started. And I think I like that over the camping game just because of that. But both of them were a lot of fun.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And honestly, nowadays, these companies know that attaching an IP to a board game is like just printing money. So like literally I'm like looking at the next generation, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get these young kids, my friends are having children, I'm trying to introduce them into board game, get them become lifelong gamers. And
Oh, this is Inception.
do not even tell me, or you guys can't even guess how many freaking versions of Yahtzee Jr. exist in the world. There's like 30 versions of Yahtzee Jr.
Really?
You can get a Legend of Zelda Yahtzee Jr. You can get a Spider-Man. You can get Peppa Pig. Like there's like, it's literally a bunch of dice that you roll with
Yeah,
like
it has
their
like nothing to do.
faces. No, well, actually, because it's Junior, Matt, it's like not pips on a
Oh,
die.
uh-huh.
It's literally like the faces of a character.
It's like 4 Peppas.
4 Peppa
Yeah,
Pigs.
you want 4 Peppa Pigs in a roll, and that's a bomb roll. So, there are so many games out there that have literally a new skin on it just with IP that everyone loves, and I'm like, yeah, I need that version. I mean, I own Marvel Codenames. I know, and I own Codenames pictures regular, you know what I'm saying? I was like, just give it to me.
Right, but I feel like the IP only does so much. Like the game itself still has to be fundamentally like enjoyable, though, right? Like you're
For
not
sure.
just shilling out for any sort of licensed version of Marvel, you know.
I mean, it's
I mean, that's-
definitely adds to the fun if you incorporate pieces of the IP to the game. So I think that was another piece of like the Hogwarts game that really helped me enjoy it, is because it felt like you were doing something that was part of the universe, and it made sense as far as like the lore of the IP itself. But
Yeah.
end of the day, like most kids that are getting into board games, they're gonna want something simple, and if Peppa Pig is on the dice, like that's probably enough, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, these days it's Paw Patrol, you know. I want that Paw Patrol
True.
boggle or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
Paw Patrol,
exactly.
anything.
Yeah, that is true.
So we could talk about another
Okay.
bit of nostalgia. Can I do one more
Yeah,
bit of
let's go.
nostalgia
Keep-
for this
keep it
year?
rolling,
From this
you know?
year. Like probably if I look back at what I'm bringing it back to games, by the way. What kind of like defined my gaming
never left
history?
Yeah, that's
Sorry, video games. No paper required.
not analog.
Yeah, so playing Metroidvanias growing up, Metro Prime being one of my favorite games of all time. Like Metroidvania has now become this huge, just overarching bubble that a
Genre.
ton of
Yeah.
games are in. A ton of games. And honestly, a lot of games don't do it very well. Like there's always backtracking. That's like always kind of like the staple of the genre. And the backtracking is never fun. It wasn't fun when I was a kid, but like I have this rose-colored glasses that like, oh, it's not bad. Like, oh, I'll just remember this door that I can now get into from the first hour of the game. No one ever remembers that first door. Well, along came a game this year that I think has changed everything, which is Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. Because in my opinion, this is one of the best Metroidvanias and is the perfect launching point if you've never played a Metroidvania game. This is the one to do. It's got the quality of life of people that were probably just like me that played Metroidvanias growing up, and they've like inserted their own quality of life into the game to make it just like an absolute seamless experience. It's one of the best games that I've played this year. Definitely one of my favorite Metroidvanias to date. One, like I think I've talked about this quality of life. One way to like remember where to backtrack, you can actually take a screenshot on the map and it'll take a screenshot of what your character is looking at. So it's like, it then turns into an icon. So you can click on that icon on the map and be like, oh, there's that wall that now I can get through. So like you never lose track of like things that you need to come back to. Such a smart thing. Like, how did we not ever think of this? Like, Castlevania came out before I was born in the 80s, and it's taken like 30 some years to figure this out. And I just love it. If you're interested in the genre, never got into it, or just got nervous about getting into it, The Lost Crown, definitely one to pick up that hits the nostalgia, but honestly builds on it.
Yeah, it's definitely a great call out. I picked those emojis because it was a sand timer and I knew he was going to say Prince of Persia. So I just wanted to do that before he even said it. But I think it's a great call out. And I think Dead Cells was another great game for Metroidvania for me this year.
Nice.
Because not only did it like refresh it in a way that made it interesting for me, in the sense that it was a roguelite, but also it was cool that it implemented some like themes from other games. So like there's skins from other games, like a bunch of different Metroidvania games, from like Hollow Knight to like a full-blown DLC in Castlevania stuff. So it was really cool to experience that. And it's nice to see like how games kind of refresh a genre that's been around for so long, like Matt said.
Love a good refresh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there anything else you guys want to specifically point out? You know, like in general, like when we're looking at games or even going to movies and shows if you want, of like what are the great kind of introductory experiences, you know, of today, of like when you're trying to get someone into something in 2024, right? Is there anything where you're like, this is the quintessential, you know, the masterpiece of this thing, of this genre that you would point someone to? You know, Matt kind of talked about it. You know, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown being kind of that modern day great introductory piece to like go backwards. Obviously, you'll probably have a little bit of growing pains, right? Of seeing, wow, I don't have that screenshot option, so I'm gonna have to write everything down or take a pic. You know, the classic use your cell phone to take a picture of the screen to be like, where was that thing? Oh, it was here on the map.
Can I say something maybe controversial?
Dude.
Oh no, of course. Like this is all about the hot takes.
So I'm going to die on this hill. I think One Piece live action is the best way to get into One Piece. Okay, I'm going to say it. I said it. Yasser texted me this week and was like, what was I supposed to do for you again? He was like, did you ever give me a recommendation? I was like, yes, Yasser. I told you to watch One Piece live action because these two One Piece heads that love One Piece and freaking watch it and read it have never seen the live action to this day still. And I was like, I'm desperate to talk to someone about it, especially as they're filming season 2 right now. Guys, this show, like, okay, I am now a big fan of One Piece, and like I'd never even wanted to look at it because number one, the art was old, and I was like, whatever, it's 2024, I'm not looking at that.
Damn.
But then, and the show is untenable. It is over 1,000 episodes. I cannot commit. No, sorry, I meant the anime.
I thought
the
you
anime
just meant it was ass. Okay.
No. No, I don't actually mean it's ass. I just mean like to step into something that is going to take thousands
Yeah, that's fair.
or hundreds of hours. I just
They have like
absolutely
20
cannot
plus
fathom.
seasons, right?
Yeah, it's literally over 1,000 episodes. And this
It's
show,
1,100 now.
this live action adaptation is fun, quirky, and like the actors really, I have no background and take my opinion with a grain of salt, but I feel like these actors are the characters that are in the anime and manga, and I see it. Like, Luffy's this goofy boy that's like trying to do his best and wants to become king of the pirates. Nami's just this girl that like had a tragic past and is just trying to survive, and she befriends this ragtag group of rascals. Usopp's annoying. Sanji is very charismatic. And
Justice for Usopp.
he's whatever. And then Zoro's just an aloof, cool boy. Like, I don't know. I'm just super into it. And I think like it got like people that probably don't even watch anime and manga to like watch it and enjoy it. And honestly, it's just a fun time.
I love how passionate you are about this. Do you feel like it can introduce new fans into the anime as well? Where like you'd want to watch the anime after?
I think so, especially because I also just heard they're freaking rebooting the anime. This anime is not even done, and they're rebooting it already.
Yeah, wait, I thought there was a new season of the anime. How are they rebooting already?
I don't even know how to explain. But like literally, someone texted me, he's like, "Tiffany, now's your chance." They're like restarting the anime again, and I'm like, "Wait, how are they even doing that when it's not even done?" So I don't really know what's going on with that. But also, the show did inspire me to start reading the manga. And I did. I read the first volume, but then it turned into like, wait, I read this already because I watched it. So I kind of was in this like, I was like, I know
this already.
And then I know this already. / like, oh, the library's taking like 1,000,000 years for me to get this volume because everyone and their mother's trying to read it now because they know it's cool. Because now I know it's cool. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Anyway, I think it's
way to be late to the party boat.
Yeah, I'm exactly. So yeah,
Matt and I have been over here enjoying it for years.
Nakama. No, this is where you jump in now. This is where you jump in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've never been antagonistic, but I feel like for me, it's just the similar boat as you are having with the manga.
You're like, I already know this story.
Yeah, I went through. I'm like 3/4 of the way through. I'm on literally like episode 770. And so you're asking me to like go back and watch the live action that only covers the first like 50 episodes worth of content of the show. I'm like, I've already 700 some episodes ahead of there. Like, if you're having trouble reading it, think about me going back that many episodes to watch it again when I already just watched it.
But you didn't just watch it. You watched that like 10 years ago.
It was like 3 years ago.
Okay.
But it was along the lines of it's still very fresh. Like, I still remember a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's probably the finer details. I'm not going to remember certain, like, interactions or, like, oh, yeah, that character does appear at this point. I just forgot because this was, like, the main story arc, and they kind of, like, you know, Oda snuck this person in, but then in reality it's a callback, you know, to this later part. So, long story short, it's a thing of, I think, it's a matter of time that I just get to it. Mm-hmm. And maybe to its benefit, it's when they've adapted more. And I think I can just binge it. Because I think if it is something I do enjoy, right? Like I was able to get through so much of One Piece back in the day is because I was just on that grind, right? Of like, I literally didn't even like play games like that month. I was just wrapped up in watching it because I'm like, I'd rather do nothing else but see the next episode, right? Like it was just such a great time. And so I feel like the strongest chance the show has for me is that they actually do continue to adapt to it, or at least adapt to the part where they get all the main crew together. And I think that'll be the strong kind of reflection of, did they do a good job in casting these characters, right? Like once we have the whole crew formed, is it great? Because I know they just recently announced Robin or Miss All Sunday and Crocodile, like their official actors. So that was great to see. I'd be like, at least visually, these people look great. You know, hopefully the costume and makeup is also going to be great. So it's going to come down to, can they portray these people? And I think it's a little bit harder of an ask when you're adapting something like manga right, to live action, because more than anything, like it, and especially comics too, like they do with Marvel, like these characters are designed right as being beyond human a lot of the time, right? Like comic book characters, manga characters look human, are human by design, but their personalities and like just how they function in their world is not human at all. And so a lot of it is going to come down to, can the actors portray these characteristics, right? Like, yeah, Luffy can be distilled into a, you know, kind of food driven, single goal minded, kind hearted character of wanting to become king of the pirates. But at the same time, there's like so many nuances, right, that like comes into play, like as they develop, you know, over the 1,000+ chapters of saying, right, he's more than just that. And it's like hard to especially show now. And maybe it's a good testament to the fact that it's being so well received, in that the actor is doing a good job in portraying that, and hopefully they can go farther when they get to those points. Because yeah, Luffy gets pushed to the brink a little bit in the beginning, but there's still so much, especially one point in particular, that if they get to that point in the story and they actually adapt to it, like that's where I'm going to be looking to be like, can this guy be Luffy? Like, can he be Monkey D. Luffy? And so we're not there yet. I don't know how long it's going to, at the rate they're going, it's probably going to take another 10 years of, you know, filming these seasons bit by bit to get to that point. But if they do, I feel like that's going to be the true culmination of like, yes, like this is a great adaptation because they were able to at least nail this moment in particular.
One
but
Piece
that's just
Odyssey.
me, you know, I don't want to wax philosophy.
One Piece Odyssey is
One Piece
the reason why I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm still burned up from One Piece. Wait, like it replayed all the story, basically the majority of the story, except for like maybe one of the last later arcs that's happening right now. So it's like it's a tired story. Like I've seen it recently, so it's like it's on the list. I will get to it for sure before season 2 comes out. I will watch season 1 because I love One Piece, but it's just like, now since they're just filming season 2, I might as well just wait. You know, there's other things going on, so it will happen. It will happen.
I do also think, honestly, Matt, I think you could watch this with Maddie, and then she'll start loving One Piece too.
Yeah,
like that's why I think it's such a good intro, and it's like low like stakes in the sense of it's 8 episodes. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, if I didn't like it, then I'm done with it, or I would have stopped if I didn't. You know, but instead, I loved it. I can't even explain how taken I was by the show. I mean, clearly I've just explained it, but like it was a very good time. And Yasser, I can't wait for you to watch it and then break my heart and tell me that it was mid or something. So there's that. I don't know. I'm
wait
like,
for the peer review.
I can't wait for that.
Spoilers.
I know.
He actually watched the full season. He's like, this can't be the recommendation. Let me text her to see
No,
what I was actually
Yeah,
supposed
let
to
me
do.
double check.
He just has to have the heart to tell you.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You know, I think about your question though, Alex, and I'm like, man, I don't know what I would say. Like, oh, if I really liked, you know, thrillers, like what thriller would I recommend people, or like what's a good start or something. I really feel like there's usually a caveat. Like, oh, I love Tom Cruise. Like, you know, Tom Cruise movie is the titular one that you should start with, and then go through his backlog. Like, even when I say I need caveats like that, I don't even know the answer to my own question for that one. I threw an actor out.
Well, good thing that that's not my question for you, because we're going to move into the final segment of today's episode. And as always, I like to end my episodes with asking each of my hosts here a recommendation, you know, of some sort. And so for the theme of this episode, where we're talking about kind of nostalgia, a great introduction to things. And right, this doesn't have to be like the introduction, you know. I don't want you guys delving deep into your mind palace and you're like, I can only think of like this one thing. And like, it could be a great start, you know, like maybe this is just the jumping off point to then pursue this genre even deeper. So I'm going to give each of you a genre. And I just simply want, you know, what's something that comes to mind? You know, what's that great starting point for the listeners to be like, if I wanted to get into this, this is a great way to get the experience rolling. And so for Matt, I'm gonna give yours first.
Okay.
As we, you know, we're in September right now. We're coming up on October. You know what they say about October?
Spooky.
Spooky season?
Yeah, it's the spooky season.
Uh-oh.
And so, Matt, I want a spooky recommendation from you. Like, in general, right? It could be a game, show, movie, experience. What is something you think is a great introduction to, the spooky season for the listeners out there?
My recommendation, because it's the first thing that came to my mind, and something that I've been thinking about since I played it last year, since it was my game of the year last year.
Oh, easy.
Alan Wake 2. Like, this is something where if you are thinking right now, I like stepped outside, it's crisp, like autumn is here.
Yes.
It is happening.
Yes.
And like there's woods behind my house, and I'm
Break
just
out
like
the pumpkin spice.
Exactly. Like, literally had a pumpkin bagel with pumpkin butter on it today. Like, we can't get any further into fall than where I'm at right now. But
Love
He's
it.
turning into a pumpkin.
I am turning
right
into
now,
a
as we
pumpkin.
speak, listeners.
Good thing you can't see my legs. It's literally just a pumpkin underneath here. If I'm thinking about like fall, spooky season, the ambiance of everything, like Blair Witch Trial always comes out of me as like, that is the ambiance of spooky season. And what is a little bit easier than that for anybody to do, and it's Alan Wake 2. Like that, the feeling of being watched and kind of like unease, but also just like, it is just a fun experience, like through and through. It's not too scary. It's not too, too hard. Like, it is something, if you want to go on a ride, Alan Wake 2 is great. And the great thing about it is they have like a bunch of intros that you can watch either online or, the introductions really in Alan Wake 2 were enough. If you didn't want to play through Alan Wake 1, you don't need to know Remedyverse backwards and forwards. You don't have to play Control. Like, just play this game for the feel of it, and it will feel like fall. And so that's my recommendation.
Wow.
Alan Wake 2.
And can I add to that I've been waiting to play Alan Wake till the spooky season that we're talking about.
Go.
And so I started the first game again, and believe it or not, I was actually surprised by this, but I was shocked by how well it actually held up.
Yep.
Because like the atmosphere of that game, along with it's like really creative writing and story, has me like completely hooked already. And I thought I was gonna be like, oh, this game is kind of clunky. It's Xbox 360 game. Like, I'm not gonna enjoy this. But I was totally wrong. I'm very excited to be playing this, and I'm looking forward to play Alan Wake 2 probably next month.
Let's go.
Nice. Yeah, getting into that spooky season. Well, next we're moving on to Tiffany. So Matt pointed out, spooky season, fall's in the air, the autumn crisp pumpkin spices out, basically you can't escape the pumpkin flavor. Every restaurant's doing it as usual. But in going with that, right, when you're at home drinking your pumpkin spice latte, enjoying your, assortment of pumpkin pies or pumpkin flavored things, you're under a blanket, right? And when you're under a blanket, you're feeling nice and cozy. And so, Tiffany, that's my question for you. What's a great cozy experience to enjoy this fall time?
Oh man, cozy time. I love cozy games. This is kind of a tough one, but I think honestly I was like kind of thinking about it. If you really want a cozy experience, I really think Animal Crossing New Horizons is
tried and true.
Is the cozy time. I love Animal. I was just like thinking about how much I love Animal Crossing because I have been playing Bandle Tale, a League of Legends story, which is quite a cozy game. But as I play it, I just kind of reflect back. I'm like, man, I really like Animal Crossing. I wonder what Switch 2's Animal Crossing is going to be like, because it's going to be, I'm ready for it. Ooh. I think Animal Crossing New Horizons is a great introduction to the genre of cozy games and in the Animal Crossing universe, period. I'd never played Animal Crossing before, but I knew of it. I knew the GameCube version. I had a friend who was obsessed with it. He was like, Tiffany, I just need to get the bells. I need to get so many bells. And I'm like, what is going on? When he was like describing the game to me, he's like, I have to give this cat what it wants. And I'm like, what? But New Horizons is so fun. I actually have a friend who bought Animal Crossing like literally like 9 months ago. Like after the heyday during the pandemic. And she's like, having a great time. She's straight up still playing it. She sends me like screenshots of her outfits every once in a while, like every few weeks. I'm like, oh my God, she's still playing that game.
Wow.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's been 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh no, I would probably maybe say 3. It'd been 3 years since I've picked up that game.
Oh.
But, you know, because I played so much of it for that time.
It's been 4 years for me. But yeah, 3 years for you.
Yeah,
Great.
no. Yeah, listen, Animal Crossing New Horizons is like the best, I think, cozy time that anyone could have. And it still holds up. Like, it's a great time.
And the only unfortunate thing is that Nintendo's still charging full price for it. So thanks, Nintendo.
Classic.
Ridiculous.
Listen, if
for
that
charging
will...
$60 for
tax.
your 4-year-old game.
Hey, listen, if that game, if the money from that game just goes back into another new game, like, I'm okay with that, Nintendo. You deserve... You know what? They know what they're worth. They know what they're worth.
Animal
That's all.
Crossing New Horizons coming to Switch 2 next fall.
The new. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the crossover with League of Legends,
Oh.
right? Because you're talking about new.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. New Horizons.
The new Horizon.
The new Horizons. Especially in the wintertime.
All right, Yasser, time for your question of the day, of the episode. And in similar vein to the season, right, we have Matt, talk about the spooky season. I asked Tiffany about the cozy time. What's also in this fall time, right, the month after October.
Mm-hmm.
Any guesses?
Thanksgiving's after
November?
October.
Thanksgiving. That's correct. And so, what do families do normally during Thanksgiving? This is in America, by the way. We are,
Watch football.
U.S.
Eat
citizens
turkey.
here.
Watch football.
But what do
Argue.
you do those things with?
Family.
Who do you do all of those things?
Talk about religion and politics.
Family.
Oh.
Family. No, Yasser had the correct
Crazy
answer.
Uncle
So,
Jim.
Yeah.
Yasser, that is my question for you. What is a great experience to enjoy with your family?
Oh man, do I got an experience for you?
Ooh.
I've probably mentioned this game before, but I think a great, like, easy to approach game that is really fun to play cooperative, especially local co-op, but also honestly online co-op. Overcooked. There is a new version called Overcooked All You Can Eat. And that not only includes Overcooked 2 and all of its DLCs, but it also includes Overcooked 1 and makes it completely multiplayer like the second game was. And I still play this game. I have like probably over or near 100 hours in this game now, just because like
Love it.
all of them combined at this point.
My.
Because it's just like so easy to just like hop in with some friends and just like cook.
Yes.
And
Just cook.
pretend like
just
you're
let 'em
Yeah.
cook.
Let
like
Yas
sometimes
cook.
it can let me cook, guys. Sometimes it can be super chill where you're just like doing this easy mode because like the person you're playing with, you're introducing them into the game. You don't want to yell at them. You want it to be a very nice environment. And then there's other times where it's like a fanfic of the bear where everyone's like about to kill each other.
Herd
And
chef.
if you watch the bear, hands please. So it's got a wide variety of gameplay, and depending on who you play with, it's really easy to have a great time. So I think Overcooked, maybe do some cooking after you're done eating. I think it's a great combo.
Man, that's such a great rec.
Good
I
rec.
love that game so much. I've played that game so many times too.
And a lot of the DLCs have like seasonally themed
Yes.
like kitchens and stuff. So they've got like summer themes, they've got winter themes, they've got spooky themes. So
Yeah, flame throwing that turkey, you know what I'm saying?
absolutely, making some s'mores too afterwards.
Yeah.
That's a very American thing. That's how I cook my turkey, with a flamethrower. Who has any use for ovens these days? Well, that's great. I loved all three of your guys' recommendations. This turned out great. I tried to theme it to the season this time. I wanted to get a recommendation from each of you kind of as a different aspect as we roll into this fall time. Who knows when y'all out there will be listening to this. Obviously, we have some production time that causes some lag in when these get uploaded. But hopefully this gets out to y'all in time, so maybe you'll hear these recommendations and you can take it to heart and share these with your loved ones. So with that, I would like to thank my co-host today for your recommendations. I would like to thank you, the listeners, for taking the time to listen to this episode of our podcast, episode 101. You can check us out on Spotify and YouTube and give us a like and share it if you enjoyed the episode and want others to enjoy this episode as well. Thank you to Grandmaster Doug for the theme music. And until next time, take care.
No one gave me a friendship bracelet.
Let me cook, guys.